Hi, Jim. Thanks for all you do. I have a question about tax gain harvesting. I'm 51 years old and recently retired. I've been very fortunate to amass a sizable amount of money through investments, and I currently have right around $1 million in unrealized gains in my investments. I was wondering how you would go about making the decision whether to sell some or all of these assets now in light of the extremely low tax rates, and then immediately reinvest them to raise my cost basis for the future when tax rates are very likely to be higher. I estimate I have to pay around $220,000 in federal tax and another $40,000 in state tax if I did this in 2020. If tax rates go up to the possible 39% either next year if Biden wins or in 2025 when the current tax bill expires, I would be paying 17% more in taxes, which would be an additional $170,000. Obviously, I would lose the compounding interest on the amount of tax I pay now, $260,000 if I went that route. I don't want the tax tail to wag the investment dog, but I also don't want for myself or for my heirs to have a massive tax bill in the future. What would you do?
Okay, DJ, you're doing great. Congratulations on your success. He's basically an early retiree with $1 million in unrealized gains, but he's really sounds like overly worried about paying taxes on that. And I wonder if he maybe doesn't understand how taxes work on that stuff, particularly for his heirs. He's wondering if he should do what we call tax gain harvesting to raise his basis on those shares in his taxable account. Now, that can make some sense in certain situations. For example, let's say you have a significant amount of money in a taxable account and you go to school. You go back to dental school or something, and your income goes to nothing. Well, that's a great time to tax gain harvest because you can essentially raise the basis of those shares, what you paid for them, to a higher amount without it actually costing you anything in taxes. But for somebody that's in their career or even an early retiree, chances are you're really not going to do much there unless taxes go up very dramatically. But there's a couple of things that would make me not want to do what he is considering doing. First, rates may not go up. Everyone's worried rates are going to go up. People have been saying rates have to go up. They have to go up. They have to go up. Well, guess what? When President Trump was elected, rates went down. Tax rates went down. They went down dramatically. And people have been saying for 5 or 10 years before that, the rates have to go up. They have to go up dramatically. Well, they don't have to. Tax rates don't always have to go up. And so realize that, there's no guarantee the rates are going to be dramatically higher in the future, no matter how much scaremongering an author or a YouTuber or a blogger does. It's really difficult to forecast exactly what future tax rates or interest rates or whatever are going to be. And the truth is, if those rates go up, it's usually forecast pretty well, right? It's all over the news. And usually it doesn't happen retroactively. It happens starting at some point in the future. And so that gives you time, if you really wanted to tax gain harvest, to then do it at that time before the rates go up. Point number 2, you don't actually pay taxes on money that you leave behind, even if it has a very low basis, if you leave it to charity, or you give it to charity while you're still alive, or if you leave it to your heirs. You get a step up in basis at death, meaning your heirs, their basis, i.e. what they paid for that stock or what they paid for those mutual fund shares, what they paid for that rental property, is what it was worth on the day you died. Actually, there's a way you can push that back even another 6 months. But basically, the value when you die, rather than the value you originally paid for it. So once you realize that, it seems really silly to pay taxes on your entire portfolio when there's a good chance that a lot of that portfolio is never going to be spent by you. It's going to be left to your heirs. And so paying taxes on something that no one would have to pay taxes on later is obviously not a smart financial move. So don't do that. I would really avoid tax gain harvesting at any significant rate. If you can do it for free, great, go for it. But if it's going to cost you something in taxes, I probably would put it off and, maybe never realize the gains on those shares. I would simply spend the income. I would sell shares with higher basis. I would use the low basis ones to give to charity, to leave to my heirs, etc., and try to avoid paying those taxes at all. It'd take a really extreme change in tax law for me to really go for that. One thing you ought to consider, though, especially as an early retiree with a lot of money, is using some of that money you have to pay for Roth conversions. If you're really worried that tax rates are going up later, you ought to be far more worried about your tax-deferred money than about your taxable money. And so what you do if you're really worried about that is you pay the taxes now and convert that tax-deferred money to Roth money. And the other benefit of doing that, so long as you do it into a Roth IRA, is you also eliminate required minimum distributions, which under current law begin at age 72 now. And so you can avoid those distributions. You can hedge against future tax rate increases by doing Roth conversions, at least up to the top of your nearest tax bracket. So I'd encourage you to look really closely at that and really maybe stop looking at tax gain harvesting. I think that's probably going to be a mistake. If you want your questions answered by the White Coat Investor, record your question at whitecoatinvestor.com/YQA or click the link in the description.